Go ahead, Karl.
Professor, only just a quick question. So when you compare, I mean, we talked about how we could identify these geos which are
Right.
comparable, right? And which can be used for running these tests.
Right.
But how do you decide in terms of, if you have multiple options, right? Which are those few geos that you would pick up, and there is also the possibility that you might run into situations where the comparability is just not good enough, right? So
Right.
can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So the thing is, so you're talking about the synthetic control approaches, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because geo selection can be on different stuff, but if you're talking about the synthetic control stuff, so we are talking. See, currently, what people have done, that is something that we are looking at the research side. See, what currently people have done is, let's take the simple example of the cigar clause, right? So there's a state California, and there are I have other 50 plus states that I can. In some sense, I can weight each one of these things, right? But I don't have to take all 50 of them or 50 plus of them. I can take 5 of them. I can take 10 of them. The whole idea is to get this ensemble of states as close as possible to California in the pre-experiment. That's the catch. So it could be just 3 states or it could be 30 states, right? So how do? I play around with the weights such that I will try to minimize the error. It's as good as a least square kind of an idea. It's a regression kind of. So, but the whole point here is it's not just one data set. It's a multiple set of time series. It's an ensemble. So I can take an aggregate, or I can do a weighted W1, W2, W3. They could be different weights. Or I can, so one thing that we are currently looking at is the entire set of people they've looked at only in a linear sense, meaning that the equation being linear. They've just said W1 state 1 plus W2 state 2, right? But it can also be W1 state 1 squared plus W2 state 2 squared. It can be exponent of state 2. It could be anything. So to answer your question, this is the way in which we go about it, right? So we can select 3 of them, we can select 30 of them. But how do we go about selecting them? One way to look at it would be to use some correlation information, which is very closely correlated to the California state. Can we select it based on that? That's one way to look at it. There is a possibility that we might not be able to find combinations that the ensemble might perform bad in terms of being able to mimic, but that will come out of the optimization. When you try to optimize, you will never converge because the error is going to be large. So that will become apparent there. Then this is not the right way to do it. But the way that it has been projected, and they have accrued enough examples for us to believe that whatever we discuss now is unlikely to happen. So a combination of time series can, there is no lemma or something that I'm saying here, but we have seen enough papers that we believe that, this some sort of an aggregate, we can make those states or whatever the set of ensemble time series to represent the time series that is of interest to us.
So Vishnu, I'll give you.
Did that answer your question?
The practitioner's answer is that in the next in Kiran's section that's going to come up in an hour and a half, he will show you how to use the Facebook GeoLift, and the Facebook GeoLift will just rank order all the markets and assign a weight to it. It'll be like the control weights. Control markets are these 50 markets, and it'll be W1, W2, W3, and you can usually pick the top 5 markets, 6 markets, whatever it is. Okay, and then there is also, you pick the control markets. You're not doing anything to the control markets. You're just leaving them alone, right? You can make up your mind after the test is done to go change the control markets. So you can say, you know what, these control markets, they're not as good of a fit as I originally thought in the test period. So I'm going to go reselect the control markets and pick a different set of markets to run the counterfactuals. You can absolutely do that, right? And in fact, that's what I did for the true perfect gene as well. And we'll cover that. So what he's talking about is the fundamental sciences behind it. What kind of research methods are being used to select these? And if you worked at Facebook, and if you actually was the product manager for the Facebook GeoLift, then you had to really pay attention to what Parni was just saying. If you're on this side, where you're just using the Facebook GeoLift, you can fundamentally just believe whatever they are giving you, and then look at the weights that are coming out of the Facebook geo lift and identify the n number of markets you want to use. Okay. Now, sometimes, as you said, it may not necessarily work for you. You may look at that and be like, none of these markets are a good fit. The weights are pretty terrible. Then what do? Then, you have to like just go back to this video and figure out what is he saying and how do I run correlations and how do I like pick markets and all that stuff becomes very, very important. 80-90% of the time, you're just going to use the markets that the library spits out for you. Okay, hold the thought. It's a lot to take in now. I'll let you like go on that. Karl, and maybe you had a question. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem. I was just going to add one thing, which was aside from letting the time series dictate, and there are great programs for matching all of these things up. If you not that you need to go hunting for it, but if you happen to have additional information or reason to believe certain markets match well, for us, one thing that comes about is time of day. They had mentioned geo-adjacent markets for selection, but if the weather's different, for example, on the mid-Atlantic or Northeast compared to Florida, you're going to have different levels of sunshine, different levels of activity, and so on and so forth. The other would be demographic characteristics. So in some cases, if you happen to know that there are differences in household income or other strong indicators of behavior, that can help you clean up or parse down your sets of control market. And then finally is other items that are specific to that area. Case in point, the California data set they were using, I'm from California, and there's a different tail at the very end of the time series. And that's because not only was that additional tax imposed in 1988, but on January 1st of 1998, they outlawed smoking indoors. And so you'll see a different drop off that you might not capture. And while that one's very specific to knowledge you would only know about that state, it also applies if there's a geo-specific promotion or change in price, that you'll see something later on in your time series that might not be predicted no matter what, confounding effects you might already have. So just things to think about.
Great examples, fantastic examples. Thanks for sharing, Karl. Any other questions?
Just a comment on what Karl said. So typically these are things that come out of something called an anomaly detection that we try to do, right? Like, so you cannot explain based on the information that you have. And when you use these anomaly detection techniques, they will show you some peaks or valleys, but then we'll have to go find. Well, I mean, there's no way to find. You'll have to relate it to based on what he said. You need some demographic information related to that time or that period or that geo to be able to answer that. But the good thing is we will be able to, most likely we can identify those anomalies using statistical techniques. That's the way.
Okay. All right, guys. Parni, thank you so much. Appreciate your time accommodating us in your schedule. You can hang out here as much as you want. You can feel free to jump.